All right, team, let's dig in. First of all, Thomas, thank you for joining. We appreciate your time and know there are a lot of demands, and we're excited to have you. And thank you to all of and everyone who is dialed in. Appreciate you joining the Hemostemics community. We are excited about these weekly webinars to talk about the potential of Vescel and ACP-01, the transformative potential in ischemic disease, but to bring transparency so that all of our stakeholders can move together. So we invite patients, we invite physicians, regulators, our investors, anyone who can really begin to surround and create, what is a unique kind of care for patients who are at no option and in a sense of a severe need, and would be interested in considering Vescel. My name is Kroom Lawrence. I'm Chief Commercial Officer and focused on patient success. And Thomas, you're here. Thank you, as our CEO of Hemostemics.
Maybe a little bit of background, your background, Kroom, would be helpful.
Yes, for sure. So I've been in healthcare commercialization for about 25 years, starting off in small cell and cardiology, actually with Merck and Company, in their Latin American division, where I spent 4 years launching drugs relative to cardiology and HIV and pain, and then spent the next 10 or 15 years in advanced biologics, working a lot with Humira and Rinvoq and Skyrizi and all of those exciting potential products. And then now, having spent time in diagnostics and in sort of AI-driven, algorithmically driven care focused on the potential of stem cells, which I think is really one of the most exciting and transformative areas of care to come around as it relates to personalized care, and obviously in the context of longevity medicine and living better longer. We think this is certainly one of the biggest areas of potential for longevity care. We're going to talk about ACP-01, the potential to restore blood flow, to heal wounds, improve quality of life. We're going to talk today about the changing regulatory environment, opportunities in U.S. states like Florida. What does that exactly mean? We're going to talk about today our clinical evidence from having 498 patients treated, and now 10 publications and several more in the queue, which is exciting to get our evidence out there. And so we have a 30-minute agenda, which is pretty tight, and then we're going to have 20 to 30 minutes at the end for any Q&A. So we're excited for your questions. If you want to put something in the chat, great. If you want to type interested, we can follow up with you. But essentially the agenda is, what is Vescel? What is the evidence? How does it work? How do I get it? How do I access care? And then what comes next? There's a lot that we can all learn. So please, if you'd like to turn on your camera, that's great. Add your name. Let's dive in. We're excited to have a discussion here. We've covered the agenda. Hopefully this is pretty straightforward. What it is, where do I get it? What are the implications for how it works? How do I know it's right for me? And then what's next? There is always important disclosure information. It is essential to say that Vescel ACP-01 is an investigational therapy, not yet FDA approved, but we're excited about the data and the evidence we've accumulated so far that warrants further clinical investigation. And so we're going to unpack a little bit about our clinical pipeline and all of its indications. All treatments are subject to the health regulations in their respective countries and states and jurisdictions. We talk a lot about that. And how we can communicate and run trials and also offer our commercial product in states like Florida and other states as they come online. Patients may travel. Patients should consult with their physicians. Treatments now are generally out of pocket, but there are a lot of exciting and innovative ways we're helping provide access so patients can afford therapy. Our foundational commitment to safety, scientific rigor, and ethical compliance is absolutely the core of everything we do. We'll continue to refer to how we bring this to life every day in our work. And I thought, Thomas, it might be fun just to share some patient stories right out of the gate. All your time and tenure in this space, but we'd love to hear from you if that's okay.
Sure. Well, I've really been involved with the company as a co-founder since 2006. And of course, that was because of Roger Burgess, my co-founder, who entered into a hospital for routine angiogram, was convinced to have an emergency stent placed. That operation went horribly wrong. They perforated his artery, gave him a massive heart attack, and ruined more than 50% of his heart function. Roger was ended up being patient number 35. His left ventricle ejection fraction was 18%. And following one stem cell, one ACP treatment, his ejection fraction improved to some 28% and then leveled off over the years at 25%. But literally, ACP gave Roger 13 and a half years of family, love, and life that he otherwise would not have been able to live, as he was given 6 months to live following his stent operation. Roger is, near and dear to Hemostemics, and his story is on our webpage. But there are many others. We have treated 498 patients, and I could go on with stories. Howie Lindeman is one I think that Kroom, you will highlight and play. Howie is is alive today, as he says, because of ACP. And there are in 498 therapies and treatments. Of course, you can imagine the number of relationships that have been generated over the years. But let's let Howie tell his story.
Well, I apologize. This is just the clip. I don't have the video here embedded.
Sure.
My apologies. For next time, we'll have it.
Sure. You want to just play the clip?
Oh, the video is not embedded. My apologies.
Okay, fair enough. So, Howie, 5-time Grammy Award-winning recording artist. In his clip, will explain how ACP not only changed his life, but gave him life. And he describes how 5 days after his ACP treatment, he actually went on the Pope's tour and was the primary individual responsible for audiovisual, and literally, had the energy to get up and do that 5 days following his ACP treatment. So it's Howie's just one 498. And to Kroom's earlier point, while we have a dedication to proving scientifically the efficacy, the safety, we have the clinical evidence, which is overwhelming, that ACP is safe, it's effective, and it increases ejection fraction, and those patients suffering from loss of ejection fraction, and it saves limbs from amputation. And this is saving a limb is saving a life. So we're excited. We're very excited. I'll finish with this one comment on Florida. Florida has passed the Senate Bill 1768, which enables the use of non-FDA approved stem cell therapy to treat pain. Well, you can imagine pain is associated with loss of circulation to the toes, feet, and leg. Pain is the symptom of angina. Pain is a symptom of ischemic and dilated cardiomyopathy. Pain is a symptom of total body ischemia. And so the commercial door wide open for Hemostemics to explain to treating physicians our data, our scientific evidence, our clinical evidence. We'll be spending a lot of time in Florida in the next 6 months and beyond. Over to you, Kroom.
Thank you, Thomas. And yes, please go see this video on Vesel Health or on hemostemics.com, and we'll continue to share our patient stories. Okay, so we will now. So our questions for the audience, for patients in the room, or for anyone in the room, we just pose these questions. Would you consider stem cell therapy if it were available to you or a loved one? And what conditions are you most interested in learning more about today? And one of the interesting areas of science here is in cardiology and in the vascular system. If there's damage to your vascular system anywhere, in an organ or on skin or in brain, improving blood flow has a material impact in a safe and effective way. Where it's somewhat there's a lot going on in ischemic disease. There are millions of people suffering. There are hundreds of billions of costs in the system. And a little of my background was, coming out of pharma, where we were very good at treating symptoms and keeping you alive for a long time, but we really would never cure you. And the cure word, we're very cautious with that. But what we're saying is that now, stem cells can regrow, they can heal, they can do things that old school pharma couldn't do, and it's a game changer, especially with one treatment and what our patients are saying and what the evidence is showing. The treatment areas that we're focused on around vascular disease certainly is looking at the heart, and as Thomas has said, we've treated and published on angina, congestive heart failure, hardening the arteries, otherwise known as ischemic cardiomyopathy, the thickening of the heart wall, otherwise known as dilated cardiomyopathy. And in the LEM, we've treated both peripheral arterial disease and the most severe form of what in our phase 2 trial results was critical LEM ischemia, otherwise known as chronic limb-threatening ischemia. And we also have some interesting evidence for vascular dementia. Just spent a lot of time in the Alzheimer's space. There are no FDA-approved treatments specifically for vascular dementia, even though it's one of the largest subsets in the Alzheimer's world. It would be an absolute game changer to restore cognition by showing the evidence that we can improve blood flow to the areas of damage. So we're very, very excited about that. We'll also talk a little bit about our partnership with AI-powered cognitive testing that can happen anywhere, where we can track and restore and then measure the results of cognitive improvement over time. So that's another area that we're very excited about, and we'll share more with you.
Just take a minute on that. So, if you're like me and I'm 63 and I've noticed I'm not the same person I was at 43. But if you're at all concerned about your cognitive abilities, we literally have a test now that you can take with full confidence and confidentiality. It is, I think, $175 US for the test, and this will give you a baseline of what your cognitive abilities are today relative to a baseline of how many millions?
2 million, the 2 million data set, yes, for the 97% accurate test.
So comparing you to 2 million with 97% accuracy, and it just gives you a baseline. Now, this baseline, if you're like me, you would think, well, why would I wait? Why would I wait until I have vascular dementia? My mother had vascular dementia at 90, but why would I wait? Why wouldn't I be proactive about this? And so I would encourage you to reach out to us. We have the cognitive test. It's very inexpensive, and it's well worthwhile to have a baseline so that you can keep track of where you're at.
Sure. Awesome. Thank you, Thomas. Okay, so let's keep cranking along here. Thomas, the next couple of slides are how ACP-01 works in our clinical data. May I turn this over to you to walk us through?
Yes, for sure. So let's start with the process. So it's a 7-day process. On day 0, you donate 250 cc's of blood to yourself. That is shipped to Hemostemics, where it is processed into ACP from day 1 through day 5. On day 6, it goes through a quality control, quality assurance check while it is in transport back to the treating physician, who on day 7 is in a preset appointment with you, the patient, and is delivering that the patient, the doctor receives 3 ready-to-use 10 cc syringes with your ACP. And if he's doing a treatment of your limb, he's doing essentially 31 cc injections into your calf muscle of the affected limb. If you're a heart patient, the cardiologist has you in a cath lab, and he's doing a femoral artery approach into your heart, and a balloon angioplasty, like release of the cells in the collateral arteries that are feeding the heart. So that's the process. The product ACP, quite frankly, is it's an ACP stands for angiogenic cell precursors. These, what we uniquely identified and what the company won the World Economic Forum Technology Pioneer Award for, was proving really 2 things. One, that there's sufficient angiogenic cell precursors in 250 cc's of blood from which a therapy can be made. But 2, we proved that as compared to a stem cell that's isolated from a donor, for example, CD34 bright is the typical description of a typical stem cell. As compared to that, what the team at Hemostemics did was identified a synergetic cell population in the patient's blood. And as compared to an allogeneic stem cell, a donor cell that is expanded, is cultured and expanded, and the competition who are selling allogeneic cells will describe how you can receive hundreds of millions of a donor cell. As compared to that, Hemostemics is a synergetic cell population that is educated to become angiogenic. And by becoming angiogenic, and because it's your cells, homes to the site of need and regenerates it. And because it's your stem cells, it recruits other cells that are circulating in the bloodstream to aid in the regeneration of the site. And so that's a very different approach. You're not receiving hundreds of millions of a donor stem cell that show up in your body and say, where am I? What am I supposed to do? You're receiving your DNA, which is programmed to create new circulation where the body signals that need. And so the results, the clinical evidence of the safety and efficacy of this is phenomenal. And if you start in the area of critical limb ischemia, in the first trial, 83% of patients' limbs that were going to be amputated were saved from amputation. In the second study, we had 20 patients randomized, 10 to receive ACP, 10 to receive normal care. All patients were followed for 2 years. In the normal care group consistent with this disease, there was 20% mortality and 75% of limbs were amputated. In the treatment group, there was 0% mortality and 70% of limbs were saved from amputation. And that was followed by our double-blind phase 2 clinical trial, where we demonstrated there was statistically significant healing in those patients that started the trial with an ulcerating wound that would otherwise not heal. And the evidence is that these wounds decrease from an average size of 1.49 centimeters squared to 0.49 millimeters squared. The picture here on the of the foot on the top right is a patient that has a pain level of 10 out of 10 on his pain scale. The foot on the bottom left is the same foot 4 weeks after treatment with ACP. You can see the inflammation is gone. There's increased circulation. Toe is no longer ulcerating, and similarly on the right is, in this case, individual who has this is a 4-month result as compared to a 4-week result, but nonetheless is a very significant you're saving of a limb, and saving a limb is saving a Now, in the area of heart disease, we have 4 published studies. One of angina, where the symptoms of the patients went from severe angina, which is chest pain at rest. And if you've ever had a heart scare, chest pain at rest means that you are essentially afraid to get up and exercise or get up and do stuff because you're afraid that you're going to create a heart attack. And it's very debilitating. Now, imagine going from that to having no chest pain at rest and having only chest pain during exercise. Well, that's what the majority of patients in that study experienced. And there was a 27% increase in their capacity to exercise, that as measured by the 6-minute walk test. So, very significant decrease in symptoms and increase in exercise capacity. And then in the 3 heart studies, this is 201 patients studied by 3 different teams. 41 patients studied by Dr. Kit Aram, the co-founder of the Minnesota and Bangkok Heart Institutes. 106 patients studied by the former cardiologist to the late King of Thailand, Dr. Supachai, and 54 patients studied by a number of physicians, 3 who studied 54 subjects for ischemic cardiomyopathy and dilated cardiomyopathy. And what's interesting when you read these 3 separate studies done by 3 separate teams is that the clinical evidence and the statistical evidence is very similar. Namely, that those patients suffering from ischemic cardiomyopathy had up to a 27% increase in the volume of blood ejected with each heartbeat. And those patients suffering from dilated cardiomyopathy had up to a 47% increase in the volume of blood ejected with each heartbeat. Now, if you followed heart disease at all, you'll know that reversing heart disease is, except for hemostemics, is an unpublished result. Froome will tell you the current standard of care is that you are on medication and you're on a slippery slope down the left ventricular ejection fraction decline. And here Hemostemics has generated 3 studies that proves that ACP reverses heart disease as measured by left ventricular ejection fraction. And so that's a obviously very significant result. Over to you, Krim.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for the summary. So we are preparing now to bring a unique kind of care to the state of Florida, where Vescel will be commercially available, and bringing support for our patients in the middle here, so that the stem cell clinicians are available, who will be administering ACP-01 is trained and available. The referring cardiologists and primary care doctors are in the loop and understand the treatment, and that the patient is also aware of all the resources we're bringing to them to help them with any of their questions or educational needs or understanding expectations, how to access support, travel support, et cetera, and that the care partner is acknowledged as well along the way. So we're focusing on supporting the ecosystem around the patient, and we'll be illustrating all the things we're bringing to that community as we go. This is just a slide, Thomas, I don't think you've seen yet, but to articulate a lot of the things you've been talking about so we can begin to clarify how we can support the cardiologist community and also the patient as they go from their blood draw to receiving the stem cell treatment to the follow-up diagnostics, where we'll gather safety data, real-world evidence data, in the context of our trial work and any reporting back to our regulatory friends. Quick illustration. Hopefully that helps a bit.
Yeah, no, and to that point, we are very data driven, and will be very data driven and focused on patient results. So, patients will commit to regular follow-up with us so that we can prove scientifically and clinically that those patients that are being treated in Florida are having an experience that is similar to that which I just mentioned.
Okay.
Or not.
Fantastic.
I'm reported either way.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Thomas. Okay, so we're a little bit in the wind down, but it's worth pausing just for a second to talk about how important Florida is and what the law actually means, right? And what physicians can do, what patients' rights are, what informed consent means. And we are literalists with what is in the law. We know that there's limited scope to the indications that are specified as it states around orthopedics, wound care, and pain management. But Thomas, as we've been talking, opening up around diabetic peripheral neuropathy as a major cause of disability for type 1 and type 2 diabetes, there's a lot of care we can bring to that community. Happy to pause on that. But that's certainly one area we're looking at. Manufacturing quality is essential. We're very confident and have a strong position here with our FDA-approved clean room and facility based out of Puerto Rico with Cytoimmune. So we're very excited about that. And then the patient notice and advertising will be 100% required at every touch and every conversation, so that every healthcare practitioner will get informed consent. And we'll read the exact statements that are required by the FDA. And you'll see that on the screen here as part of our compliance. Anything else, Thomas, on that before we move ahead? Any thoughts, or is that okay for now?
Yeah, no, I think you've summarized it well.
Okay, so we're excited about that, and we'll be attending to what is required in this law and in every state law as they come out, because we know there are other states that are also on the 1 yard line as we go. This is our clinical platform. A lot of exciting things in the queue for coming up for phase 3 and other phase 1 and 2s. Anything, Thomas, to cover, or is that good for now?
Well, yeah. So the what we mentioned in the last presentation, which is worth mentioning, is that we are, and on a regulatory basis, still going down the clinical trial path. We're not shifting gears here. But what we will do is we will use the data of the commercial treatments to support any of our applications. And with respect to CLTI, we do have a phase 3. ACP is phase 3 facing for critical limb ischemia. We are designing a basket protocol. This goes to the heart of the FDA roundtable, which we should draw your attention to. There was a roundtable done recently by the administration, including RFK, all the heads of the FDA. You've got not only the regulators there, but the politicians, if you will. And what was very interesting about that talk, it's a 2.5-hour roundtable where you have physicians, scientists, regulators, politicians all at the table. And what was very interesting is RFK said, the current healthcare model in the U.S., the standard of care, is costing the U.S. $1.3 trillion a year. And it is a pill-based standard of care that you're on medication for symptoms, and you're on medication for the rest of your life. And quite frankly, the U.S. cannot afford $1.3 trillion a year. What we need to do, he said, is we need to break that business model. We need to, and through cell and gene therapy, we think there is a real possibility to talk about cures and not treatments of symptoms. And so you can imagine how that opens up the world of opportunity for companies like Hemostemics. Now, what Hemostemics is able to do in that kind of an environment with that kind of thinking is reframe the standard of care. And we think we can go right back to the first diagnosis of peripheral arterial disease, the first diagnosis of ischemic, non-ischemic dilated cardiomyopathy, the first diagnosis of congestive heart failure, and prove scientifically that just like ACP works at the end stage of heart failure, it works at the beginning stage of heart failure. And so we can revise the standard of care to quote unquote cure or improve heart function at the beginning stage of these diseases, and thereby open up the market and thereby save the U.S. healthcare system part of the 1.3 trillion that it's spending a year. Heart disease being the leading budget item, I think, in that, or close to the leading budget item. So, we show you our clinical pipeline on the one hand. On the other hand, know that we're thinking, we're in lockstep with RFK on reframing the current business model, and literally ACP represents a breakthrough for the treatment of heart disease in that way.
Awesome. Thank you, Thomas. And so along those lines, we are bringing a complete care program so that patients can receive treatment. They will all receive comprehensive diagnostic workups that are appropriate for the commercial setting and also for the clinical setting, personalized plans and recovery plans and support, and then long-term monitoring and care. So that's part of our promise from Hemostemics. The three reasons we invite everyone to join our community is absolutely for urgent and early access for patients that are suffering. And Thomas, when you mentioned people at pain level of 10, that is, there's severe deconditioning, anywhere close to a 10. And so we, in our world, every single day counts. Focus on outcomes, on evidence, on learning, empowerment, and bringing this community together. Our final slide is, so for patients on the call, if you or someone is struggling, please reach out, and we can figure out access to trials. We could talk about Florida's new law. If you're an investor looking to partner, please reach out to Thomas here, and we would love to continue the conversation. Just very grateful for your time today, and so I'll pause there and offer questions and answers.
Yeah, and I'll offer the payment discussion. So there's really, think about this in three different ways. If you're a high net worth individual, then you can buy a therapy convertible debenture, meaning that you will know if you're patient number 524 or 530 or 550. We will pay you 6% interest in stock on your cash while we use it to ramp up the company. If you're an individual who is interested in a payment plan, we have a monthly payment plan that will fit your budget. And if you're an individual who needs financial assistance, then we would encourage you to make application to a foundation that Dr. Henderson, our Chief Medical Officer, has set up. And to the high net worth individual, I have a pitch, which is that, if you can afford a TCD, as I call it, consider making a tax deductible donation to the foundation to help an individual who can't afford it but needs the treatment. Thanks very much, Krim.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Thomas. Okay, so I will stop sharing, and we will entertain any questions. And thank you for everyone.
Well, people are formulating their questions. Maybe I'll just say something about the company. We are a public company listed on the TSX Venture Exchange. We're listed in the US on the OTCQB market, and we're listed in Frankfurt. The management and the board have now some $10.6 million invested since March of 2020. We've done that obviously with eyes wide open, and would encourage you to join us as a shareholder. You can buy the stock on the open market, or if you're interested in participating in a private placement, reach out to me. at tsmink@hemostemics.com.
I'm clicking over. I'm hoping to see our chat area. I see our chat box now. When is the expected date when this treatment is available? Thomas, would you like to tackle?
Sure. So we have production will be up and running by Q4, by the end of Q4 this year. We expect full commercial treatment in Q1 2026. So January 2026. Again, you can pick your line, you can pick your place in queue up front. And I would encourage you to do that because I believe there's going to be a significant number of patients that are going to require treatment.
What is the number of patients that can be treated daily from the lab?
Great question. So you'll see in our presentation slide deck that we are forecasting initial run rate of 20 patients a month, which is approximately 1 patient a day. But the capacity of the lab is actually much greater than that. We can process in parallel, and so we could conceivably process 4 patients a day the month, and so that's where we're at. What's interesting about the cytoimmune facility, you'll see this in our press releases, is that that's working from one clean room essentially on one shift. If we go to 2 shifts in that clean room, we can double that. And what's interesting about the cytoimmune team and facility is that they have 37,000 square feet of available production capacity, and the average clean room 400 square feet. So you can start to do the math. They've got the in pre-construction or in construction right now. They have another set of 4 clean rooms that are ready to, that are, I would say, at the 50 to 70% of construction completion, with all the supplies and all the equipment, everything required on site, ready to go to complete. So our goal as a company, obviously, is, and one of the reasons why we have used the therapy convertible debenture as a financial instrument, is that by forward selling therapies, we will be able to lock in a rate of production based on forward sales that is logical, enables us to put in the patient queue, the patient will understand where they are in terms of the week that they will be treated. It enables us to schedule physician time most logically, and it enables us to manage margin and manage processes, including the increase of production capacity. So we've been looking at this and have our hand on the wheel, so to speak.
Awesome. Thank you, Thomas. Okay, those are the only questions we have. Is that good enough for now, everybody?
Super.
All right. Thank you, Thomas, for your time. Thank you, everyone, for your time, and we'll be with you. We'll be back next week, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thanks, Krim.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.